I'm Lori Magruder, and I'm the Executive Director of Resources for Independence. We're the Center for Independent Living in Garrett, Allegheny, Washington counties. Um, and I think we have, Katie already went over the SIL directors that are with us. And so back in June, the Maryland SILs got our heads together and decided to do a weekly broadcast and entitled I Am. It's Independence Amplified Maryland. And so we've had some really, really cool speakers and a lot of subjects that we've covered. Anything else I'm forgetting there, guys?
Well, this broadcast is going to be on YouTube, so be aware of that. If you it will be recorded and available on YouTube as well. So if you want to listen to it later, please feel free to send other people to it. We do these broadcasts every week, Mondays at 2 o'clock. So please get on our list so that you know what broadcasts are coming up, and be sure and alert people that you know. Our idea is to let people in Maryland know what people with disabilities are doing and thinking about and talking about these days. So this is your go-to place.
And I'm just going to put another little addition in there. Obviously, to do something like this, it does cost some funds from the SILs. So any donation and any amount will definitely help our efforts. And you can do that either during registration or, again, like Mike said, everything is on YouTube afterwards, after the broadcast. So, okay. Go for it, Katie. You're next.
Great. I am so excited today to have Stanley Holbrook here with us. Stanley has been working with my SIL for maybe the past 5 years on and off, helping us do strategic planning and kind of figure out a way forward as kind of a newer SIL. So when we started talking about the need to bring this conversation forward in June, I reached out to Stanley knowing that he had done some of this work with ILRU. So just a brief overview of Stan. He has over 25 years of nonprofit experience. He's done many different things, including running the Center for Independent Living in Pittsburgh. He's also been the president of the Pennsylvania Council of Independent Living and vice chair of the Pennsylvania Statewide Independent Living Council. He does a lot of work with ILRU, and he's done several sessions on this specific topic: intersectionality, diversity, racism, disability, how that all goes together. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Stan, and we will hopefully have a great productive discussion today.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you to everyone that's come and gotten a call to participate. This is a very timely subject, and it seems more timely since the shooting of Mr. Floyd here. But actually, this paradigm has been going on for a long time. Years ago, I presented, when it came to health disparities of persons of color with disabilities, about what they call double jeopardy or triple jeopardy. And that's when a person has a disability, they may be a person of color, which is another barrier. And to put it on top of that, they may be a woman, a person with color, and with a disability, and we call that triple jeopardy at the time, because there were layers of barriers that person had to navigate to actually get services, quality of life. Other work has been done when it comes to the Department of Health and Human Services. Money was laid out 3-4 years ago and tasked to ILRU to look at best practices and see how we can integrate disability, diversity, and intersectionality to a point where everybody has equal access to service, to quality of life, to a welcoming environment. And we had to look at some of the barriers that really stopped us from doing that. And a lot of it was cultural and linguistic incompetence. Just not knowing the culture, but deep down inside, there's personal bias that has been formed in each and every one of us that affects the systemic bias that has built a foundation over 400 or 500 years. Saying all that, how do we get to where we need to go? Do SEALs have a fight in this battle? And if they do, how should they move forward? The last little nugget I give you is around 2050, your majority will be the minority. So how do we remain resilient as SEALs and provide services that serve all? So the paradigm is changing. So today I don't want to lecture at you. Today I'm going to have a talk. I call it a hard conversation or a real conversation. And what I want to do is create a safe space so you can say your thoughts here and not have anybody jump on you. Because a system has been developed, and whether we like it or not, or whether we dug the first hole or made the foundation of the system, or just become privileged because of it, it's there. And so I'd like us to look at our own self. And during the Floyd murder, it seemed like a lot of people, a lot of centers had solidarity statements and things of that nature to move forward. But I want to know, are we moving forward? And how do we move forward? And what is your opinion about this whole thing now with racism that's been there for years? But it appears to be with one shooting becomes a worldwide movement. So are SEALs supposed to be part of the fight? Let's start like that. Are SEALs supposed to be part of the fight? Anybody can speak, and let's have a conversation. Don't get shy on me now.
I would just like to jump in, Stanley, and let everyone know we've tried to mute everybody to keep background noise down. If you're on the phone, you can hit *6 to unmute yourself, and you have your ability to unmute yourself on the call. If you've muted yourself, I can mute you. So just feel free to unmute and ask questions.
I need somebody to be the brave one.
Well, I'll be the brave one. I'm Laurie. I live in Anne Arundel County. I'm a consumer with ARI, and I think, well, how can SEALs be involved? I think that we started by we had a great Zoom the other day with racism and all sorts of stuff talked about, and I think that if we can, as a SEAL, maybe do some training in the community, at a local organization or whatever, just do some training in terms of racial sensitivity or whatever kind of training you would do, and then start there. Keep the conversation going.
Okay, So you believe SILs should be in the middle of this fight?
Well, I think, I don't say in the middle, but in terms of representing people with disabilities and in our independence and situations, I think that, yes.
Yeah, well, I call that in the middle. The disability movement had 4 great pillars, and one was on the Civil Rights Act. And the Civil Rights Act was pretty clear about us and equitable treatment and everybody getting the same things. Now, if we can't stand on the pillar, of our independent living movement, then who are we?
That's right. I agree.
Who are we? And we need to think about this. A lot of people say, well, I'm not racist. I can say I'm not racist, but am I anti-racist? And that's where we need to go. Everything should be up aboard on everybody.
Well, I think that it's great that we're having conversations because, for example, before this year, I didn't even know about Juneteenth. I didn't even know what that was. I'm ashamed of myself. So I think that there's a lot of conversation that needs to go on to enlighten people about, the rich cultures that we have and what people have been through. We need to talk about it.
You said something good, and it's not going to be a me and you conversation, but you said something great about the rich cultures that everybody brings to the table. I'm working with a group of Christians and Jewish people, and we were talking about Juneteenth. And they were saying, I never knew until now what Juneteenth was. And why is that? And Juneteenth, rich culture was, some folks finally realized they were free. They didn't know for years. And so they kept working. But I believe that if we really learn about everyone's culture, we'll see some things that are like our own culture, and some things aren't. But I think that everything in the country was based upon inalienable rights and things of that nature, and it was written down well, it wasn't followed well. And even in the disability movement, I've seen some vicious battles between those with visible disabilities versus those that don't have visible.
Mm-hmm.
And there's discrimination right there. And things, it's not just a color thing, it's not just a gender thing. There's different cultures that we're bringing here, and we need to be cognizant of those cultures. And I say it takes some education, and it takes some time, some intentional personal responsibility. Something happened to my screen. Here it is.
Hey, Stan, it's Katie.
Yeah.
I think some of us have been doing, work and kind of trying to figure out how to be anti-racist. Can you explain to the group what that means? Like, what does that even mean?
Anti-racist is we do not tolerate racism in any form. It's one thing to say you're not racist and you see racism going on around you and you don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-racism brings you to a point to talk. And so that's where I am. It's like, that's my definition. It might not be the best definition, but my definition is we don't stand for racism in any form or way. We don't let it slide by. Letting it slide by is as bad as being the culprit. That's my thought.
Thank you. Well, yeah, and I think that's kind of like it's like that whole when you're at the airport or you're on the metro, if you see something, say something. You know, like you see something that looks suspicious, you're supposed to tell someone. And so that's kind of what I'm getting out of it, that like many of us can kind of go on our daily life and hear things, and it's really easy if you're in a place of privilege to just kind of ignore it, or just kind of say, well, you know, I'm not gonna broach that topic. But really being anti-racist is making sure that if you see something, that you say something, or that you confront the reality of racism head on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, there was someone had their hand raised. Vicki Gibson, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest that every organization look internally first. And one of the things that they can do is everyone could have an equity officer that was involved in significant decisions to determine whether or not those decisions are fair, and also develop specific opportunities for people of color with disabilities and kind of steer them towards those opportunities. The problem is that there are definite barriers, and those barriers are not going to be overcome by the individual necessarily. We're going to need help. That's it. Oh, the other thing I wanted to suggest is each organization could also have their employees and their staff, and even whoever else is affiliated with them, take an implicit bias testing. I think it's either Harvard or Princeton has a free online test, and after you take it, it will tell you what you're inclined to be biased towards one particular color versus another. And I think it's helpful because usually it's really kind of surprises people and makes them look inward. So you have to start with the individual, then the individual organizations, and then you can move outward.
Thank you, Vicki. You're the second one to mention Harvard and that anti-bias test. And there's one I'm going to send to the association also from the Anti-Defamation Association that really makes you think. I want to stop at this time just to say, if any center needs to look at work that's been done in this area of intersectionality, disability, and diversity, go to www.ilru.org, and under disability, diversity, and intersectionality, there are many trainings and webinars that have been completed that deal with corporate culture, values, policies, procedures, how to make yourselves welcoming, even as deep as data mapping to make sure that you are hitting the percentage of people you need to hit and that are underserved in your area. And where you can do that and find them and make sure you get those services together, as well as developing partnerships outside of your organization to strengthen those cultural and linguistic roots, and to help you be more effective as a center. Thank you for that information. Any more comments?
This is Audrey from ARI. I wanted to bounce off of something that Vicki said. Vicki brought up a good point, which is that you can create an opportunity, but unless you actually try to make it accessible to people and make it not just like accessible in terms of like disability needs, but also easy to get into, having the right information for people to reach out to, having those people be responsive for different kinds of opportunities, then if it doesn't fit all of those criteria, then it's not going to work, and it's not doing its job. So I think a lot of times, like, people try to check boxes, like, okay, well, we said we asked for accommodations, or we did this, or we did that, or, we gave all of these opportunities for people to tell us what they need. I think with certain kinds of work, you really need to put that responsibility on yourself when you're trying to get people engaged. to make it a welcoming environment instead of putting it on them.
So you're saying we need to be intentional
Yeah.
with our intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And people can feel that. You know how you're dealing with a kid and they can know if you're real or not. So can consumers. See the right things and they can say, this guy's not real. He's scripted. So we need to be very intentional in our efforts in trying to move this along. It's not a cut and paste. It's not a check off the box. It doesn't happen over a couple training sessions. You know, the way we are in the world, we finish this training, we're good. No, it's going to take us some time. It's going to take us some time. And really the effort has to come from within. So when you guys talk about anti-bias, when we talk about privilege, those are things that maybe you didn't build, but you fall into, you know, and how do we pull ourselves out of a position of privilege to one that helps everyone flourish? And that's something we need to look at doing, you know, right away. I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
My name is Abiola, and I have a question and a comment.
Yes,
And I, in terms of, in response to your question about what SILS can do, my heart is still broken about the story of the young man, Finan Baird, who was the young man who rushed the police officers with a knife. He was living with mental health related disabilities. And because White Oak is literally a mile away from Independence Now, it hurt me to my heart that he wasn't one of my consumers, that maybe had he had access to a SIL, perhaps he would still be with us if he'd been able to get, you know, been connected with the right resources. So I think one of the things that SILs can continue to try to do is more outreach to make sure that the disability community is aware that we're here and that we're here to provide support, not just advocacy, but support, and you know, hopefully prevent deaths at the hand of the police who need further training on interacting with persons with mental health related disabilities. And that's my first comment. And then the second comment is that for the disability community, or either women or men, and maybe an example that we can take from the Lean In movement is where women are now actively across organizations supporting the comments or the contributions of other women. And perhaps a way to be anti-racist is also to not to allow dismissiveness of persons of different, you know, different skin colors, as might take place across organizations, to, you know, to add a comment of support when your colleague of color makes, you know, makes a contribution or makes a comment. Just a thought.
Can I say something real quick to interject on that? I think that's an excellent point. And I'd like to suggest also that people look at kind of explaining to their staff what microaggressions are.
Yeah.
It's more likely that you're going to have someone dealing with a barrage of microaggressions than you are with them calling you a nigger. So, and I think it's something that should be, you know, really looked at very closely, because it's a form of bullying, and every organization should have an anti-bullying policy and procedure.
I think everything is said has been excellent. I've been doing microaggression work, so I'm dreaming about it. But with the association in Maryland and a few, not Maryland, New York, which is large, and a few others I'm scheduled. I think that's an excellent place to start, because microaggressions, even though it says micro, they have macro effects on people who are being aggressed. And I believe the young lady before that talked about recognizing people and also mental health. This has been going on for years. I can pull up stats from the 1930s and 40s where a majority of Black folks killed by the police had mental health issues. And I saw someone in the chat that said, police need more training. And that's right. I know we started to do that. I don't know if that continues, but that's something that needs to be done. But I like the outreach and education aspect is let's pull as many people as we can in here. So, so we can educate them and provide resource so it doesn't happen again. So this is on all levels. This is on all levels. I start naming names and you'd be surprised that a lot of Black folks, persons of color with disabilities had mental health issues that were gunned down. So thank you for all those comments and suggestions. And I'm hoping somebody's writing them down for the association. Because if you needed to do microaggressions, I could do that. I'm ready for that already. But any other training, I could help to move the association forward just when it comes to education. Any questions or comments? This has been great so far.
Well, so Stan, I guess you know, can you give maybe some people on here don't understand maybe what the term microaggression means. Can you give an example of what a microaggression might be?
Yeah, I can give a lot of those. Microaggression. What I can tell you about microaggressions is sometimes they are intended. They're not intended to have bad connotation on what you're thinking, but actually the person that is being microaggressed feels and some kind of intention on your part to demean them. And see, you know, what I can say is microaggressive behavior is really a form of aversive racism, ableism, and other isms. The effects are on the persons being microaggressed, who are the target. And microaggression is so big, there's classifications. You could be micro insults, micro invalidations, micro assaults. And so those are just some things that happen. And a couple examples is defining microaggressions is subtle, verbal, nonverbal slights, insults based on gender, color, ethnic, and other stereotypes. They communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative viewpoints. And as I said before, they could be intentional as well as unintentional. And microaggression has a broad, I'd say it's a broad way, it just doesn't tune in on race. It goes gender, gender preference, disability, ethnicity, you name it, there's a microaggression.
So
Go ahead.
I was just going to piggyback on that to give like a more specific example. Like, let's say, for example, somebody's working on a project. They get in the meeting about the project, and then everybody that's sitting in the meeting ignores them. That's a microaggression.
Yeah,
or somebody.
I'd say that's a good one.
Or somebody in describing that person's work says negative things about it rather than positive things, or in describing them to other people, or, you know, I mean, it's just being treated like the worst person in an organization, just like a pariah after a while. It gets pretty bad.
It does.
There's this is Audrey again. So one, you mentioned, Stanley, that like microaggressions are sometimes intentional, sometimes they're unintentional.
Right.
So I'm a white woman, and I've seen one particular microaggression happen like a lot in terms of race, where it's like a group of women, and there might be like one Black woman in the group, and one of the white women starts saying like, oh, wow, your hair is so beautiful. I love exotic hair like yours. Starts touching the other person, starts touching the Black woman's hair without permission. So like that, somebody might be thinking, then generally like a lot of the other white women join and they're like, oh yeah, your hair's so beautiful. I love Black hair, da 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 da. And it just like serves to other that person in that group and make them feel different. And so I think that like they think that they're doing a favor, right? Like that they're being nice, that they're giving somebody a compliment, but what you think is nice is not always what somebody else wants to hear.
Absolutely. And if you want to ascribe to intelligence, a person can say to that, in that same scenario, to the Black woman, you are so articulate. And that message can be construed to, it's unusual for someone of your race to be so intelligent. And someone could take it that way. Why did you pick me out to say that?
Absolutely.
You know, so that's something, I have several trainings on microaggression, aggressive things, so we wanted to go there. And I know you guys, anybody ever been microaggressed? And how
Hi, everyone.
Hello?
Hi, my name is Tina Robinson. And I just wanted to piggyback off what the young lady just presented, because I was strongly urged to discuss perspectives the entire time we've been talking. And she brought up a really great point about the hair situation and how someone could perceive her patronizing or giving a compliment to someone else's hair and it coming off as like, why did you choose me to compliment, or why did you choose that form of compliment? Or, you know, I think a lot of what racism is surrounded by is our perspectives, how our perspectives are shaped. And if I could comment and say a great training that would be beneficial to a lot of people is a training that is geared toward helping people to shape their perspectives, to be flexible, to understand things from the perspective of not just yourself, but to see them in the view of other individuals. And I say this because just like the young lady before me stated, my intention was to compliment you about your hair, but your perception was that I was like demeaning you, or I was targeting you, or I was emphasizing something about you is just so different from what I'm accustomed to. And it's like, no matter what choice words we use, sometimes someone is able to pull from it and become sensitive to what we said because of their perspectives. I honestly believe that the biggest factor of how racism is perceived or delivered or just taken in general is based upon our perspectives. And I don't know if everyone is like Baltimore based right now, but one of the biggest things that I personally have had a different outlook on as an African-American woman in our society right now is Vince's Crab House located in Middle River, Maryland. There's this big thing going on where apparently the owner went online and he said something a little racially explicit, and it caused an uproar. And so the African-American community has targeted every business that Vince's now owns, even to today. Like, it's been like 2-3 weeks now, and they are still outside of their shops. There's, I can't think of the word, Lord have mercy. They're still, not rioting, but they're still like
Protesting?
Going against the business. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for catching my tongue for me. They're still protesting against the business. And in my honest opinion, I feel like as an African-American woman, these are the things that causes other ethnic groups to form hate towards us. Because although we want to be heard, we have to make sure that we're making the right kind of noise, if that makes sense. So if you want to be heard about this issue, express yourself in a respectful way, and then let it be what it's going to be. If you don't want to patronize the business, don't patronize the business, but don't go out of your way to make a fool out of yourself, because now you can't be heard. The people that you're trying to get to hear you now hate you, and they're causing more people to hate you because the way that you were trying to convey your message was a little inappropriate. Sometimes I feel like as an African American, as a part of the community, we sometimes try to bring light to hate with hate, and you can't drive out hate with hate. So I think sometimes we have to be more mindful of our perspectives, the way that we target, the way that we present ourselves when addressing certain issues. And I feel like it all goes back to perspective. Like, we have to consider him as an individual. What was his upbringing? What is his foundation? How was he raised? What did he come from? You know what I mean? What area does he live in? Who is he accustomed to hanging around that would encourage him to post such things? And I think sometimes we just, as a people, forget to be humane. We forget to see people for who they actually are, where they come from, the things that can drive them to think or behave the way that they do. And we just automatically get so invested in, let me label you, let me describe you in this way. We want to condemn people to things because they riled our feelings up a little bit. They made us feel a type of way. And I think sometimes it's just best to get out of our feelings and try to think like them. How can we flex our minds to understand where another person is coming from, whether or not they appear to disregard us, target us, or, just demean us? Sometimes it's not demeaning. Sometimes it's really them expressing themselves in the best way that they knew how. So if I could say anything, I really think that if we had some kind of training that enabled us to flex our mindset, and I'll just say this and I'll conclude. When I was a little girl, my father taught me to have an open mind, be open-minded enough to be receptive of new information, but be skeptical enough to block out things that aren't really relevant, that would not benefit me. And I think that lesson has carried me so far in life because it enables me to shape my perspective. Even when you hurt me, you offend me, I feel like you're targeting me, I'm able to step back from the situation, not always immediately, don't get me wrong, I'm still human, but I'm always able to step back from the situation and say, I wonder where he or she was coming from. Why would you target me in this way? What would drive you to say X, Y, Z to me? What caused you or influenced you to think the way that you think? You know what I mean? So that way, when I approach you with my understanding of how things went, we can engage in a healthy conversation and I can develop an understanding of where you are coming from. If our perspectives are strong and we had issues with people, when presented with issues, I feel like we can address them more appropriately by saying, hey, this is how I took what you said, but what did you mean? And if your perspective is strong, you'll be open-minded enough to receive what that person is trying to tell you about what they meant and not how you took it. I hope that makes sense. I felt like
yeah, I mean, I get that the whole issue of perspectives. I'm African American too. And I think that we have to really be careful that we don't blame the victim because, really realistically, the reason that people are protesting now is because the broader community wasn't listening. And the reason it's continuing is because the broader community still is not listening. So, and it really, what I've heard, something that I think is true, which is if this is going to get corrected, it's not going to be corrected by Black folks. It's not going to be corrected by Latinos. It's going to be corrected by white folks, correcting themselves and reaching out to others in their community and saying, no, you can't do that around me because it's unacceptable behavior. So, I mean, perspectives are important. And I do think it's important for people to consider it. I think it's important for people to function under the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But we can't blame people for saying, look, enough is enough. The reason that we have the rights that we have today is because of the riots and things like that in the 60s. It's not because somebody had an epiphany and said, oh, we shouldn't do this anymore. That wasn't what happened. And things still haven't substantially changed. And, I just think it's important not to blame the victim.
Hi, my name is Jessica.
I just want to be clear that I wasn't blaming the victim. highlighting the fact that the victim is wrong for expressing his or herself. So I just don't want to get that misconstrued. The victim has every right to present their issues. I'm just saying that when we address what we're bothered by, if we could just find a tactic to do it in a more peaceful and respectful way. You know what I mean? That we can be heard when it's peaceful and respectful. But I get what you're saying. But I definitely wasn't saying victim blame. The victim is never the issue. That's why they're the victim.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I did want to say that I think this is an excellent conversation. I'm a Black young female, a woman with a disability, and it always seems to be this topic is really good because I'm actually going to start doing something with Black young females that have had bad experience of being pregnant with a disability, because of the simple fact people like to touch my belly without my permission whenever they see that I'm expecting, especially when I was expecting with my twins. And then they realize that I'm a Black young female with a disability. The reason why I wanted to sort of just say a couple things on this topic is because I actually have to go to a doctor's appointment. But this topic, for a lot of Black young females with a disability, I am hearing this across the globe, that people think they have the right to touch our pregnancy bellies, which they do not. I don't care if you're Black, white, a Mexican, I don't care what you are. If you're pregnant, I think you should ask. That is a violation, and I think that needs to be dealt with more than what it's getting dealt with.
Very much for that. Thank you for that exchange. Any more comments?
Hi, sorry, I'm Serena. I just wanted to, I didn't know the exact situation with the Maryland crab house and the nature of the protesting, but I think in our efforts to hold ourselves accountable, sometimes there can be some generalizations. So I think sometimes saying things like, we need to be better, or making all Black people accountable for maybe the undesirable behavior of a few isn't really, I think, always the most productive. So I just noticed that's just something I wanted to bring to attention. Just like any other race is not individually responsible for everybody, Black people are not responsible for every Black person's behavior either.
Thank you. Yeah, we can't stereotype everyone. And that's what it tends to sound like and look like, especially when we're rebuking. It seems like we're rebuking the race and we're putting everybody in that mold, and it's not true.
So Stan, it's Katie again. I had a question, I guess, kind of piggybacking off this discussion of like how we do our advocacy. So, you know, I've always, you know, when I see particularly like the disability rights movement, you see that there's lots of different kinds of advocacy that goes on. There's the adapt advocacy that can, you know, people are getting arrested, they're protesting, which is wonderful and great, but it's not always that advocacy serves a purpose there, but there's other kinds of advocacy that we can do that might serve different purposes. So I'm just kind of wondering, in thinking about the rich disability rights advocacy efforts that have gone on, how can we kind of translate some of that into, you know, the movements that are going on now with Black Lives Matters and, you know, that intersection, and as people in the disability community who want to take on these issues of intersectionality and racism, how do we best put our advocacy efforts to use?
I really think, Katie, that, and this is something I thought about, when I look at the major disability advocacy organizations, period, not counting sales yet, but I'm going somewhere with this. You know, it doesn't seem they have a priority for anti-racism activity. They don't have anyone, a person of color, in a senior position to help drive that. I think priorities need to change from that level of up there with the big guys, down to the level of the centers to keep anti-racism as part of that advocacy that we need to pay attention to and put some funding in and some time into. It's not there. It's not there, and that's why we don't see it. That's why it's moved over to the side. And I did some checking with the big organizations and found out it's not their priority, nor do they have a division or a department or a person that looks at this. And I think that would be a well-needed addition for them, and not only in the centers, even if centers have advocacy departments, have somebody looking at those issues and reporting on them. And I think that's the beginning.
This is Abiola again. I just wanted to just make one final point too, just piggybacking on Katie's great comments. One of the challenges probably within leadership in systemic advocacy is particularly for someone with a disability who is a person of color, because of systemic racism, you're generally speaking not going to be inclined to be on the front lines of a protest because of the what's associated with an arrest record. And a couple of my colleagues mentioned that at the last two nickel marches that we participated in, is that as much as the movement is supported, the concern at the back of the mind is, I can't be the Black man that's arrested at any kind of activity, because having that on my record is just another strike against me in this system that's systemic racism. And
so can I address that really quick? I am a white person, but I've been arrested about 7 times, and we don't do criminal offenses, at least in the organizations that I've been involved with. So they're only citations, and all you have to do is pay a fine, and after 90 days, there's no longer anything that shows up on your record. I've had my record checked.
Well, I would.
Hi, this is Chiffon, and I just wanted to add a comment and an idea. I am a woman of color, and I think one thing that would be great for the SILs to do is to find neighborhoods that are, the demographics are Black Americans. I'm sure that would be easy to do. And send out mailings to those neighborhoods, those addresses, saying, hey, we are here to help anyone with a disability. And, I don't know how you would delicately state, we're here to help people of color that have a disability. That would have to probably be worded better. But I think that's the only way you're going to be able to reach out. Well, one of the ways you're going to be able to reach out to people of color. And of course, it's all education, because people are taught to be racist out of their own fear, out of generations of junk that were based on lies. So you got to have the education and you got to have the outreach. Thank you. I'm going to put myself back on mute because I'm outside.
Okay, I think a very good way. Before my disability, I used to work for the health department, and we did outreaches all the time. So health fair, community, anything outgoing, any kind of event that you can do. I know right now there's not too many events going on there's not any events going on because of what is going on. But when they do have them, again, that's definitely a great way to spread the connection.
Hey, I don't know, Katie, if we're recording this. I think I heard that. And we could look at some of the ideas more in-depthly, especially the advocacy piece and other things that we can, we can't get it done in one conversation. You need several conversations to move things forward. But I think there's been some very good conversation here, some very good transparency here. I think this radio show today was pretty good, for what has come out of it. I think it's just a beginning point for the association. And I think as everyone commits fully to trying to move this to a better place and bring on other folks, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. It's going to take some time, some commitment, and intentionality.
Yeah, and I guess, we're getting to the point where we need to kind of start wrapping this up. But I do just want to say that I think, the Maryland Centers for Independent Living and the Statewide Independent Living Council have drafted our 3-year plan. And we're going to be having a hearing on that on the 17th. It's this month, in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today.
August 17th.
Yes. And so part of, I think that we've put a little bit of something in there about this topic, but perhaps that's a way in which we can keep us moving forward as a state. I know that the Maryland Association of Centers for Independent Living, we've been putting together these live streams, and I think we're all kind of on board for keeping this agenda up top, or keeping this on the agenda at the top, prioritizing this as a piece. But any recommendations that you all have as members of the community or community partners, I think it's really important to hear from you all, because we can't be an island. We can't do this all on our own, and we need the input of the people who it impacts. So I think that is really important. I think did we lose Lori?
It's possible.
No, I'm here.
There she's back.
Other Lori. Well, that's Lori from Resources for Independence. So does anyone have any final words that they want to kind of leave us with here?
Yeah, the restaurant owner in me can't help but make a comment. As many people know, I used to run restaurants. I want to read you what Vince said, the owner of the Crab House, and make an observation. He said, and I quote, "There's one place I bet protesters/rioters won't light on fire or break into or even block the road to: the social services building." I make an observation, and it goes like this. When you go into business, public goodwill and public opinion are what make you successful. And if you squander that away, then I have little sympathy for people who then cry foul and say, "Oh my gosh, how come they're picketing me? How come they're trying to ruin my business?" Because you tried to ruin their lives with that statement. It was a foul statement to make. Anyway, that's my observation. I want to thank everybody for coming today. These are fascinating discussions. We have barely scratched the surface of this subject, and we'll have to really take it on more seriously again, because it really does beg for resolution, and all of us need to get involved in whatever way we can to make a more peaceful and loving world, and a caring world, and a thoughtful world, and hopefully out of this summer's good troubles, we will be able to move forward and learn from it, and make a society that we all can live in with decency, hope, and respect.
So Stanley, any parting words from you, our esteemed speaker? I'm so thankful that you were able to come on and share your hour with us and spend time prepping for this. I think it's been a really great conversation.
First, my parting words are thank you for everyone that joined the call. And while many of you may have not said anything verbally live, that chat was moving all day, you know, and a good conversation going on the chat. I'm so grateful to have some people that are committed to make things right. And as long as you're committed and that's your goal, and you're intentional, no matter how long the trek, we'll get there. I ask you each to keep marching and doing the right thing and working together as a team. As much as you can about each other, about other cultures, and try to make this the best state for people with disabilities when it comes to equitable services, access to service, and quality of life that they really want and expect.
Thank you very much for being here. By the way, toward the end of this program, we always give everyone in the community, if you have an organizational event coming up, anything that's going on that you think the public needs to know about, this is your opportunity to speak up. So please, please unmute yourselves and let us know what's going on out there in the state.
So this is Katie. Every week I seem to be making the same announcement. We're hiring. If you know someone or are someone, particularly someone who has housing experience, either personal experience navigating housing or paid professional experience helping people navigate housing, we are hiring for a housing specialist. So I will post that into the chat so that you all have that to share with all of your friends.
All right, thank you all very much.
Okay, so we'll end this. I haven't gotten it in the chat yet. I'll work on it. If you want to see it, it'll be in the chat. Also, please remember next week we have, who do we have next week, Mike?
No fair.
Oh, we have Steve Ann Ellis, right?
Yes, from the Ombudsman's
office. The Ombudsman, long-term care Ombudsman, she's going to talk about what's going on in nursing facilities. We have lots of folks in Maryland with disabilities in nursing facilities. So that should be a really great topic. And she's a wealth of knowledge and a wonderful advocate. So
and hundreds of people have died in nursing facilities. This is an action item for all of us to think about. How can we change it? How can we help people get out of nursing facilities? How can we help people not go into nursing facilities? So you don't want to miss this opportunity to hear Stephen Ellis. She's wonderful, as Katie said, a wealth of knowledge and can help us think through moving forward on this issue. Thank you.
All right.
All right, I think we're good.
I think that concludes our day today. Thanks again, Stan, for coming on, and thank you to everyone for participating in our conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Stan.
Yeah.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you, everyone.